If you stick around till the end, I'll show you a cheeky little hack that will save you a bucket load of time. Hi, and thanks for joining me. In this video, we're going to talk about mounting our body shell correctly to a touring car, but the principles remain the same for any RC car body shell. I popped down to Inside Line Models and I got myself a new shell that we're going to use. Same as the last one, is the Xtreme Twister Speciale. Pop that to the side, but I also purchased this. Now, it's a bitty design, block and pen. And what this is going to do is going to help us mark the height of our body shell once it's mounted. In the description, I'll leave a link for the Xtreme Speciale body shell and this handy body marker line making kit. Also, a couple of other tools that I have purchased previously from Inside Line, a pair of Core RC curved scissors and my Fast Tracks body reamer. I've also got the wheel arch marker from MR33, and we're going to need our ride height gauge. So let's get started then. The first thing that we're going to need to do, we're going to need to make sure that our chassis is in race spec. What I mean by race spec is make sure your battery's in there and your ride height is set. That way we can get an effective mount when we put this body shell on. I'm going to take the body shell that I got from Inside Line Models, the Xtreme Speciale. Now this is a body shell that I usually run, or I have been running, and that might come in handy later on when I tell you this secret hack. Let me know in the comments what body shell you're using, and if you're part of the Facebook group, make sure you post a picture in there, because once this shell's mounted, I need some ideas for a lovely livery. So brand new body shell. First thing I'm going to do, we're just going to take the rear wing off there so it's a little bit easier to deal with. Now on the back of this, you can see there's two end plates, I suppose, so make sure if you're using one of these shells you don't cut through them. You might want to stick those on your rear wing once we're all finished. Lovely jubbly, one rear wing and one main body shell. The next thing that we want to do is we want to follow the baseline of this body. All I'm going to do is trim to that line so we've not got a huge amount of shell to deal with. Now it's up to you. You could use a straight pair of scissors for this, which might give you a straighter line, but I'm going to stick with the curved ones. Make sure as well that when we're trimming it, we don't trim the wheel arch. We need to do that later. So as we get to the arch, just go straight across. Cutting the baseline, now complete, as you can see there. Gonna take my bitty design line marker. I mean, it's a glorified marker pen and block really. But what I like about it is the fact you can have different heights that this marker's in. If you see that there, it's not quite central. So you've got how many millimeters off the ground or how many millimeters clearance it is with the pen in. On the front there of the wheel, there's a line and a couple of markings vertically with one horizontal line through it. Now these are there to help us with how far forward we want to mount our body shell. I think I'm going to go over those marks so it's easier to see. Inside each wheel arch, those marks there. The most forward of these marks, the one that's at the front of the car, so this one here, that represents our neutral for the body shell. However, we can actually use our body shell to tune our handling characteristics of the car also. So a lot of pro drivers like moving the shell forward, which apparently gives them more steering. I think that I'm going to mount mine slightly forward. I don't know if I'm going to go all the way forward, but the reason being is Our track is very, very small for touring cars, and I need a lot of turning. So I think we're going to mount this body shell a little bit forward. So going to aim for the last mark on there. Who knows, it might give me too much steering, but what the heck, let's give it a try. Lined up there, in line with our mark on the wheel arch. And now all I'm going to do is look over the top and make sure that we've got equal sort of distance at the front, and there is 2 marks on the rear there, which is going to help me get straight. What you can do is, and this is something that Alexander Hagberg does, and he keeps a note of them, he measures the distance between the post and the bottom of the window, and that way it gives us something measurable that we can repeat over time. So I've grabbed my calipers, just going to measure these distances now, and there, 64.5 and a bit, 64.5, so that's all right. You can as well, if you want, measure from your post to maybe a line on the body shell or the outside part here to make sure that you've got the right distances. I'm happy enough with this. It's time to take the body shell off, and we're going to make some holes. So let's move that out of the way. Now when we're doing this, be careful, because these shells, one, they're not cheap, but they're not too tough. So be careful, maybe put your hand behind it so you've got a little bit of something to push against. Don't put your finger behind it because that will hurt, but just to stiffen it up slightly while we make that first impression. And once we're in, ream our body holes. I do it through, and then what I'll do, I'll flip the body over, and hopefully that just gets rid of any little burrs that are on that hole. Our holes have been reamed, and I've made a bit of a mistake. They're not the tidiest of holes because the body shell's so thin, like I was saying, but the main thing is we need to make sure that there is movement here, okay, and it falls on its own weight, so there's no binding at all when I lift that up. Same with the rear, it just falls back down under its own weight. So moving on to these wheel arches. Now, as you can see there, that last line here is pretty much in line with that axle. Because we've moved our body shell forward, look, you can see that it doesn't quite match up with the original markings of the shell. Slightly off there, I think, but it's close enough. It's close enough, that last one, for me. So I'm happy with that. What I'm going to do now is mark the position here of the rear axle. Lovely jubbly. And let's get these wheel arches sorted now. So I'm going to take my MR33 wheel arch mount. I'm going to line up my hole there and there. Draw around my wheel arch there. Spin it round, same thing. Do the rear too, and then we can move on. Now I'm going to use my Bitty Design line marker. So this obviously means it's 6mm distance from the floor, 7, 9 and 8. I'm just going to put this down like that and literally just mark our body shell like that. There. So now we have those lines all the way around. The body shell is sitting nicely. We've trimmed the correct height for the shell. We've marked out our wheel arches. One last thing to do, cut these wheel arches out. You can go straight in with your pair of curved Lexan scissors, or you can use a compass cutter like this, and that will score a line in the Lexan, and I think it makes it easier to cut with the scissors. So take your template, put it in the middle, and we want it to just about pass around the outside of that. If you watch Tonisport's video with Beck doing his body shell mounting tutorial, he measures the cutter at 33.5. And all you're going to do is where the axle is, you're going to put this pointy bit onto the axle, and then we're just going to score. There we go, wheel arch is now cut out, and lovely jubbly, no catching on the body shell at all with the steering, simply lovely. Now if you want to, if you've got a Dremel, these edges you can round off. Definitely suggest rounding these sharp points off as well, just so they don't get caught on carpet. You can just use a pair of scissors just to round the edge off slightly. Get it painted. Last thing to do, cut this out and get that mounted on the rear, and you're ready to go racing. Now I did talk about a little bit of a hack. So if you run the same body shell, now I really like this Xtreme Twister Speciale, so this isn't the first one that I've got. What you can do when it comes to mounting the holes, you take your old shell, take your brand new one, you can actually rest it inside. Once you've done that, take your pen, mark your holes, and there you go. Handy little hack if you want to knock these out a little bit quicker. If you want to see what livery I go with on this shell, check out this video and I'll see you over there.